Right, so last time I was having a little bit of trouble with this. What I've realised is in core we didn't add this, which I'm hoping on some browsers this isn't like a locked object, so you can actually still change it and append to it. But we're just going to put the maths.pi over 180 because for radians is 1 pi is equal to 180 degrees. So when we converted degrees to radians, we have to times it by this figure and we'll get the radians value, which this takes for the rotation value. So now we save that, we'll just run the game engine and we'll see if this is correct. Right now we have it at see if some of this stuff's still. Right, so now if we select this property, which is the square drawer, we can try rotating it, and now we should get the actual square being rotated as it has been there. Have we still got this? We haven't got the directional values attached to it because we haven't set this up yet. One of the next things I wanted to do was, I never actually looked to see if this actually works. I don't know why it didn't work. And even now I can't see why it doesn't work, but okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to use the mouse values. Mouse capture is just going to be a function. This function is going to take an event, and because we don't want to be using this function, generally we're going to put an underscore so we know that it's used in the system rather than something that we interact with as like an interface. I believe it's just event.client x is the distance away from the left side of the screen. I'm not actually going to be setting it, we're going to be setting something else, and we're going to do input dot raw mouse x. I'm just going to set it to 0 by default, and I'm going to do y as well. And obviously this is mouse.y. And we're just going to set these up as it goes. So x, this input should get updated, and now we need to add the actual, let's hope this works straight away, with the event listener. So I'm just going to do it the same way as we've been doing it here, just because I don't know what's going on with this and why it doesn't work. On mouse move equals mouse.capture. So now if we rerun this, we should have mouse X. As we move the mouse close to the left, we're getting small values and bigger values. Right, so that's good, and we want to convert it to screen space, so this space here inside this box, we need to do a little bit of maths for that. And we're just going to get mouse equals function. So this is always updating just these values. So now if we actually wanted to get the values within the box, we need to actually do some extra little things, which is, first of all, I think all of these canvases are inside this layer container. I'm going to use the layer container itself, just because we can keep track of that and we hopefully will never change that. Get bounding rect, I believe that's right. We can just go, I'm going to let this be the container. Now I've got to remember, because in the core we have the screen size and resolution size. I can't remember which way around these are set up. We'll just go into the setup and we'll have a look at... Okay, so screen size is... Okay, so screen size is the actual... I'm also going to comment this in so we know. And the pixel width. So the style width, well, now is the HTML side of it. This is the one that we've actually got to use, which is style.x. And we're going to go straight to the input and we're going to use this. Now container, if we go container.left, yeah, it's left. We have these three values for x. If we want to find out how far away from, so if I just draw it quickly, so this would be the screen, and this would be the canvas. We need to figure out, and we've got a dot here. We want to find out how far away this is from this, but right now all we've got is this coordinate here, and this coordinate here, and this coordinate for the mouse. So that's where the mouse is, over the canvas. So we need to figure this out. And we need this to be in relation to this, which we'll do in a second. If we take this one away from this minus this value should give us that was right. Minus this. So minus this should leave us with this, basically it being 0 when you click the top corner, and obviously anything outside of it will be a negative value now. The screen size is the style, which means now I have to figure out how to, if I divide it by this, it will give us the percentage inside this layer, so it would be the percentage in this direction from this point. So it would be something like 10% or something like that, or 20% in this case. and then we've got to multiply it back up to be on the resolution of the in-game screen. And this is core.screen size. Where's the core resolution? Core.resolution, and just check that is core. Yes, it should be. And I want to make a vect equal new vector vect.x equals this, and vect.y should equal this. Now, there is a little bit of a problem. If vect.x is less than 0, I'm going to return null, and if y is less than 0, I'm going to return null. Or also, if it's the opposite way around, so if this is greater than the resolution, we're going to return null as well. Unless if the mouse is not within the canvas, it's going to return null, hopefully. Input dot what did I call it? Get mouse. And I did not put an, did I need, no, I didn't need an event in there, so get mouse. And if I click that, get bounding rect. It's not get bounding rect, it's get bounding client rect. Now if we do this again, is it because that's an ID and I haven't put the ID tag in it? Might help if we actually return the actual value. Of vect, so we should see refresh it. And that's 600 and 600. Did I not change the multiplier? Oh, it's y. And that's y, and that's y. And this is top. And this is also y. At some point I will get this right. Not a number. Y is not a number. Okay. War mouse y, war mouse top. And $300, and so it's 2 pixels away from 280, 480 and 640, which is the top size of it. maybe we shouldn't do this, but rather okay, we've got a better way of doing this. Dot clamp. Is clamp a function? Or min might be a better function. So the minimum should be 0 for the x and y, and I'm going to do the same again except for the max values, which just basically means it's always going to put in the it's always going to return a value. It just depends on it shouldn't be returning -8. Don't know the minimum value. Because I've got these backwards. I did not set anything. Long day. So you can see it's returning all the, well, hopefully the correct values, and they look very close to the correct values anyway. I'll take it as the correct values. So now we've got the get mouse, and we can change the position. We can use that at some point in the future. Now I wanted to change something up in was it properties or actors. Okay. So we've got different run loops. Essentially, we want to go back up to scene. No, we don't. We want to. So I want to add in more properties to the base properties, which isn't open. Or property interface. And in this we want to add in this dot. I'm going to put 3 underscores because I don't want to be able to access this generically, and I don't want it to conflict with anything that I might be building. I want to put is set up equals false. I also need to put it in here, as this property is not set up. because I don't want people to actually be using it, I want to throw this is a not invalid, but what would be a good word for it? Privated. Privatized property. Is set up, and then we want to set it to setup equals false, and we want to make sure it's prototyped. So again, that's going to put it inside the actual thing. Then so in something like Unity, you'd have a wake, start, update, and then late update, which has to come at different stages. First thing you do is you do the awake, then you start, and then you do everything else. This is setup, and we want to go to setup. So run loop is not going to be sufficient, especially on draw GUI. So we need to figure out what we want to put. So we want to do the setup first. Pre-run pre. Run pre-setup, and we want to put run setup, so that'll be like your awake and your start. Then you want to do run your loop, run loop, and then light loop, I guess. And then we can put our draw stuff on the very end of it. Run draw. Now this should be running on the scene. On the layer we would do the on start, on run. Okay. So it seems I was already developing the system. On start, we do on start. Nothing has been done with that. Let's put on pre-start. And on so many different ways you can do this. It's trying to figure out which one's the best way to do it. So for instance, this is probably not going to be the way I'm going to do it. I'm just going to probably put pre-loop and loop. What I would then do is I'd do something like if loop if no, you have to put the loop this inside this. if the property.I dot underscore underscore is set up equals false, then we've got to do the awaken. This hasn't been set up here. Pre-setup. What did I call it? Loop late. So if this property dot setup equals false, then what we want to do is this property dot draw, this property dot pre-setup needs to fire first. And then we want to do the setup and else we want to do the other one. This would be the late loop or loop late. This would just be loop. And so it would activate all these, but we want to make sure all this has some standard. Because I don't like that had lowercase and everything else had uppercase. Just make sure everything is correct. Then we want to do run draw at the end, which we need to check something on here. On run, we can do, so we can run everything and then we'll do it again for the run draw. Just call it run first and run second. Obviously when it gets to this part we want to set it to equals true, so we only do it once, so next time it comes around it will try to do all this, but we'll realise that it needs to run the actual loop instead of the actual setup, so it only runs the setup once. And we can try that and hopefully we don't have any errors, which looks like we already have. That's okay, we can fix it. 20 on the actor. presetup does not exist, and obviously that's because we have not put the presetup that is in the interface, but it hasn't been implemented into the core of this. I'm also going to put enabled. And that's something we can do later on. Store enabled. Might as well do that while I'm here, so I'm just going to copy this and add. We don't need to add the throw because we don't care if it's already been assigned as long as it's been signed true or false. If not, it will throw an error. Well, we might still use this notation though. Undefined, we're going to add it, and these are pretty much the exact same as well, so just add these into it, and instead of doing this we need to do tmp.p resetup. That should all be everything that you need it to be. Actor, that should have been. We'll just keep it in the order it is up here, that way we can always find anything that we're missing. Presetup, presetup, setup, 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 setup. It's probably a better way of doing this, but it's not too much of a pain. It's slightly tedious, but as long as we only have to do it once, it shouldn't be too much. So now we've got this dot enabled. I want to go back to the actor and I want to put in if this property is enabled, then we'll run it. If it is not enabled, we will not run it. And we'll do the same for this, and we'll do the same for this. Now hopefully if we restart it, it should. Well, it didn't have any errors, which is good so far. The only problem is it's not doing the draw UI apparently. We need to fix that. Still length.access.draw should be fine. Unless when did I set the enable to false? No, enabled is true. Oh, but I did not set it to true here. Yeah, no, there we go. We've got our little actor back. Now what do we need to do? So we can add properties to this, but can we add actors as well? And that's the next thing we're going to do. Let's not run actors. equals function, and this is run first, run second, and third. And we'll just do the exact same thing again. Second, and I think it was draw. Yep. Draw. We go for I is less than actors length I plus plus. Then we want to go through all these actors and we want to do this dot run first. We do run second and run draw. And then all we want to do is, after this is run, we want to, specifically after it's run, we want to run the second lot. And finally run first. And that should be good enough. Uncaught actors is not defined. It's this dot actors. Looks like I wrote it the right way everywhere else. That pops up there, nothing happens. It's all good now. We've done this red square, we can just add an extra control. Copy. We're going to add a control property, which is just going to control using the WASD keys the way we was doing it before. But this time it's just going to be doing that, and we're going to attach it specifically at that moment. So just to give us a tiny bit more testing ability. It also means we can keep this test code out of this, and we can just keep it as an actual system rather than having to keep editing it through this render square. So this control could also be a test, and we don't need this. Right, now that should hopefully write it in the right place, yes, and index, we will just add it to the list underscore control. Right, we did not add it to the actual object, which I believe was temporarily doing it in here, temporary setup. I want to make a reference to the control. underscore property and put underscore control. Just duplicate this and we'll just add it to the. So I'm just adding the property to the actor. So now it's got two properties on it. This actor here and check I wasn't using that. So all of this should be working. Why is it not? Unless it's just doing the first one, but it didn't add it to it, so what happened there? It's adding to layer 2. I added the control, but I did not add the control instance variable, which is going to break it. Which I'm surprised it didn't flag it up as an error. Now you can see it's actually moving. Now this is moving quite slow because the frame rate is 1, but if I put it to 30, I can see it's now just moving with the arrow keys. That's nice, but not the best, because we need that time dot. So in Unity you would use time.delta time, and this has not been set up even though it's using this refresh rate. I guess we could use that because this is a fixed, because we're using a fixed updater, so we update on a regular interval. We could always use core dot refresh rate. So if we multiply it by core dot refresh rate, and because it should still be able to handle floating point numbers, it should manage it pretty. And I also have to remember that it's based on 1000 milliseconds, which means it's a time in milliseconds, not seconds. Now, I believe it is moving. I think it's just very, very slow. Or it could be that I did not have the 1 on the end of each one of these. There we go. Something more adaptable. Which just means now that I can put it as 1. But really we don't want to be using it in the draw GUI, because we had this function that we designed which was loop. So if we put loop in, I'm just going to change this up because I don't like the fact that it's a different syntax to the rest of it. Which I think at the start I said I'm going to try and keep it to the same syntax. But sometimes I use JavaScript syntax and sometimes I use C#. Hopefully nothing's going to break now. Oh, I need to update it in Actor. And I believe this should be alright, yeah. At some point I might change all that, but not today. This dot speed. So this is already looking a lot more like Unity, but if we do this dot speed, this dot 5, change it from 5 to speed, we can then have some adaptability on the right, we did implement rotation values, which means if I wanted to rotate it I would need to grab that property, which currently has no way of accessing it. What I want to do is add a underscore property name equals blank, or in this case it would be property interface, and just underneath enabled I want to set this up properly. That's not even set up properly, so this property name, and it's going to equal child class dot name, and that should give us the name of the actual child object that we passed. When passing render square, it should give us the name render square. No errors, which is good. And if we have a look at what's actually stored in here, we should now see that it has setup, isn't enabled, is not added. We've got a loop function. It's given it an actor. Now if we type okay, so it is there. We just need a way now to look to see whether the property exists that has this name. So we need to go to actor, find property equals function property name. Now, do we want to return a single property, or so this should be looking for, yeah, we'll do two, and we'll do one as find the first instance and one that will find all instances. We'll do a simple search for it, so we'll do let I equals 0, I is less than this dot property dot length I plus plus if this property dot. So this property would have these properties. The name equals the same, would return this property. Hopefully that hasn't broken anything, which it hasn't. Then I want to go to the control and I'm just going to put into these, so if I or dot and comma, we're not actually going to be affecting the actor itself. We're going to go let renderer equal this dot actor dot find. I don't think it's just dot find, it's find property. And then we're just going to put in the name of the thing we're looking to find. Then we're going to go renderer dot rotation plus equals, I did 10 multiplied by the core dot refresh rate, and we're going to do the same here. It's going to be interesting whether it will send me a reference or whether it's going to copy the data and just send me a copy of the data. If it copies the data, it's not going to rotate it, and if it doesn't, it should rotate. So no issues so far. Let's bring it down. It's rotating very fast first of all, because we haven't introduced this multiplier in it. Still not a good thing. So we can see what's actually happening. It's rotating from 0, 0, but we don't want it to be rotating from 0, 0. We want it to be rotating on the object itself. So I'm just going to look at the actor.property first. So it's got to have something to do with the position. So to me, it might be something to do with the order in which we're actually doing the operations. So this is doing the draw. This is doing the transform. And this is reverse and transform. That's essentially what it's doing. So somehow in the transform I've done this wrong. Should have added this in up here and removed it from there. Which is why everything's going wrong. Which means because I've added it here, I must subtract it down here. Minus Is it actor dot position? I don't know. Yep. I'm supposed to put it in after. Never mind. There we go. Now, will this work? Yes. Which way? The dot should have been rotating in the positive direction, which it wasn't. And the plus. This is just so right, that's working pretty well now. So now we have one actor that can do all this, but obviously it's going to not actors, the core, where we've done this temporary setup. We can actually build another one, add a bunch of ones to this. Just so it's referencing new information. So now that should be adding another actor to it, but well, if we want to see if it's working differently, we need to add control 2, and instead of using A, we're going to probably use something like J, L, I, and K as these values, and this value, I mean, it could stay the same. I don't know, Z and X or something. And we're going to put control 2. To JS. Yep. And not cool, we should just check that we put in core control 2, which is fine. Everything else is fine. We can use the same renderer, it's not a problem. We just need to make sure we've done control 2 in here. And if we run it, so it looks a bit darker, that's because it's rendering 2. Now, can we separate these both? And we've got two actors now moving independently. And they should both rotate wherever I want it to go. We've got something that looks considerably a lot more like a functioning game engine, even though there's nothing that's actually been going on underneath the surface at the moment. It's just moving left, right, and using inputs, and although we haven't used the actual mouse, which we could probably do something with that now. Quickly try and do something with it. What? We can do something with it. We can do the on key down, when the P's down, I'm going to get the actor location position, and we are just going to set it straight to the input dot get mouse. What did I call it? Position. Well, it was position, but I could have put location. So now if I hit P, it's jumping straight to my cursor. So we have something that's similar. Now all we need to do next time would be to input a click and detect whether that clicks within a boundary, and then we can have a button essentially, and that would be the UI side of it. But now we've got something functioning, we've got something that will just make sure that also, even though it does move to the position, it does still use the same inputs control layout. So that's now working, and we can build upon this for next time.